And I must confess, I have been personally hugely looking forward to this next session. We've called it Youth to the Front, and you will see why, because frankly, it's about solving the biggest challenges facing us right now. And I am proud and delighted to say that we gather an international audience for this, which will be a virtual session. I'm going to leave you in the capable hands of our next moderator. Nicole, what should I say about Nicole Krenzel? Well, she's an angel investor. She is the chief executive of Black Girls Fest, and really she is a cultural curator, and I really feel that we are in hugely capable hands. Let me hand over to this next panel. The next person you see will be the brilliant Nicole Krenzel.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much, Cogix, for having me today. Hi, I'm Nicole Krenzel. I am the CEO of Black Girl Fest, a platform and festival dedicated to Black women, girls, and non-binary people. Today, I have the absolute honor to host this panel, Youth to the Front, taking systemic racism, inequality, and injustice head on. As a teenager, music producer and multi-Grammy award winner Nile Rodgers was an activist for the Black Panther Party. Decades later, his We Are Family Foundation created Youth to the Front Fund, providing that supporting the funding youth activists, youth-led organizations, and projects at the forefront of fighting systemic racism, inequality, and injustice, and proving that it's an actual solution. Today, I am super thrilled to be joined by such an incredible panel of super smart and talented individuals who are truly paving the way for the world we want to see. And because I cannot do any justice to introductions, I'd love to welcome the panelists on stage to introduce themselves, sharing a bit more about who they are, what they do, where they're based, because I'm so excited that everyone's global, and starting with Nile Rodgers himself.
Hi, I'm Nile Rodgers. I'm chairman of We Are Family Foundation, and I've been, oh my God, a community activist since I was a child. I was socialized by my beatnik parents to care about people and care about the community. I worked tirelessly as a child, which actually was, I won't say fun, but it was a combination of fun and a sense of fulfillment. And that took me up until my teenage years when I joined the Black Panther Party, and I was a subsection leader. And I was in that organization for a while. We successfully started the Breakfast for Children program in New York, and it was a mega success. And we quickly learned that working with teens, working with youth, was the key to our successful, how should I say it? I won't say penetration, but certainly catching minds when they were most likely to be open and inquisitive, and I don't want to say malleable, because we weren't trying to make everybody Panthers. We were actually just trying to get people to question things around them. And we found that it was that type of training, for me, put me on my life's course. And I'm still that same guy to this very day. And I always want to answer the question, what if? What if we do this? What if we do that? And it's an extraordinary life. And our newest program at We Are Family Foundation, Youth to the Front Fund, we're finding that it's one of the greatest what ifs that we've ever tackled.
Amazing. It's so great to have you, Noel, and what an honor to share space with you. I'd love to welcome Rihanna to the space as well. Hey, Rihanna.
Hey, everybody. Thanks, Nicole and Nile. My name is Rihanna Shah, and I just graduated from MIT and Harvard with a business and public administration degree. I'm originally from India and New York City. My background is in technology, venture capital, and innovation. And I've been with the We Are Family Foundation as one of their global team leaders for many years, although I'm no longer a teenager. When I was in high school and college, I ran and sold an education technology startup that We Are Family Foundation had funded and had supported. And it's been a really, really interesting journey over the last couple of years, sort of working through various issues in tech. And I'll talk more about some of the work I'm doing currently on algorithmic bias. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Rihanna. And I would love to bring on Arthur onto the stage as well.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. Hi, Nicole. Hi, Rihanna and Nile. My name is Arthur Lima. I'm a Brazilian dentist from the city of New York, and I'm currently a master's student where I do research on mental health at work during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm also the CEO of a startup called Afro Saúde. In English, is Afro Health. Creates health technologies for the Black population. And thinking about race development racism here in Brazil, we connect patients, Afro-descendant professionals from different health areas such as medicine, psychology, dentistry, and nutrition. I have to be here. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you. And I'd love to bring on Farai as well to the stage.
Hi, everyone. So excited to be here. My name is Farai, and I'm from South Africa. I am an African hybrid because my father is Zimbabwean and my mother is South African, and I am absolutely proud of the continent I come from and the potential that we have. One of my biggest passions is looking at how we can turn this youth boom into an economic opportunity. I believe in the potential of young Africans so much such that my full-time job and my side hustle, which is my absolute passion, are both linked to youth employment and empowerment. In my 9-to-5, I work for the Youth Employment Service, which is a large South African organization that aims to really combat youth unemployment and create opportunities for youth across the board. And then when I'm not at work, I work for the Africa Matters Initiative. I'm the co-founder of the Africa Matters Initiative. And we are so passionate about upskilling and empowering young Africans with the skills and tools that they need to be able to lead their communities. And these include advocacy skills, social entrepreneurship, and leadership skills. We were recently funded by the Youth to the Front Fund, and I'm so grateful for finally being recognized for the potential that we have. Looking forward to engaging today.
Amazing. Thank you all for joining us. And I'm absolutely thrilled to hear each of your individual stories and also the incredible work that we're going to be doing with the fund. So as we're all here today to talk about the youth and in your respective countries, the work that you're doing is so brilliant. But collectively, we know that young people have such an incredible, powerful voice, right? Working with sometimes and against old systems to develop new systems to actually enact real change. And it's powerful. It's a powerful driving force. We're driven by this incredible new generation of thinkers and doers, and it feels like times are changing, mainly because we're seeing, as we've seen with the work that you all do, how young people having a voice can really change many systems that we're in. So starting with you, Nile, kind of the story that you were telling us about your early days in joining the Black Panther Party. I'd love to know from yourself and then further from the rest of the panel, what was the driving force for you as a young Black man in America to join the Black Panther? And what was the driving force for the communities that you were trying to support? What really drew you to this space? Because I just want to set the context for a lot of people who are probably also trying to understand, what can we do for the youth? I'd love to know for you, from your experience and kind of your early years, what you kind of brought you to the space.
Well, I had, as I said, I was socialized to care about people. I was involved in lots and lots of other programs prior to joining the Black Panther Party. But maybe this is a sort of strange byproduct of youth. I got hung up in instant gratification. Once I was working for the party or working with the party, we found that we were getting results right away. It wasn't pie in the sky type of programs that we were working on. They taught me how to be financially literate. They taught me how to deal with vendors. And I'm now speaking very specifically about the Breakfast for Children program. I would go to various vendors and local merchants in the community, and I would figure out the economic benefits for them to donate their food to us rather than return it to, when you have perishable goods and you have to return, then the vendor winds up having to, take a credit where whatever. And I said, wait a minute, you donated to us, you can actually take a tax deduction, you get to feed kids in the community. And right away, we had a self of instant gratification. It was just amazing. We got to interact with the kids, we got to feed them, we got to see the improvement in their in their work ethic, in their school, all their academic endeavors, and it was just incredible. And I had never seen anything that was so instantly rewarding. Get the food, talk through the deal, negotiate, go cook the food, serve the food to the kids. It was just this wonderful, exciting program, and it taught me so much, and it made me realize that that kind of excitement and instant gratification, because as you all know, that when we're involved in a lot of these programs, we don't feel the results until well down the road. For me, as a young teen, wanting the world to change like that, it made us feel like we were changing the world like that.
Which is so powerful. I think for young people, it's having the power and seeing how that power actually makes changes in their lives that they want to see. Sort of a similar question for you, Farai. I'd love to know, kind of working with young people on the continent, like what do you see as their driving force for wanting to see the changes around them? What is really driving them to step into activism?
I think what is driving us as young people on the continent is the realization that we have to change the African narrative. For a long time, we have been fed this narrative that Africa is this dark continent of no hope. Africa is the continent of little opportunities. And yet, we are definitely in this change as young Africans where we are saying, hang on, that is not our reality. We have over 230 million young people between 15 to 24 on the continent. That is a youth boom, and that is a youth boom with so much potential to contribute as leaders, to contribute as change makers, to really shift the economics of our continent. So as young people, we're seeing this incredible drive to say, how do we shape the Africa that we want? How do we shape an Africa that is focused on human development and where your economic development is also a feature? And I think for me, what has been incredible to see is that if you go to a group of unemployed young Africans and teach them a skill, be it leadership, be it social entrepreneurship, be it advocacy, that community is changed forever. And so what we do and what we focus on is how do we embed critical skills? Because we are not the continent of no hope. We are a prosperous continent, and I cannot wait to see what this generation of young Africans is going to do.
That's so true. And thank you so much for the insights on that. I think it's really powerful to kind of see how their communities are so energized. And I think I would love to know as well, Rihanna, like a bit about kind of what you think in terms of the kind of tech ecosystem and how tech can enable some of these changes and kind of add a voice to young people in terms of the activism that they want to enact and the changes that they want to make, and just share a bit more about kind of the work that you do as well.
Yeah, for sure. So some of the work that I do focuses on algorithmic bias, and so I'm running a project right now called Ethics AI, which is a project that is combating algorithmic bias by combining both technological fixes as well as sociological fixes. So sort of looking at what's in society around us and what are some of the things that need to happen, as well as what are some of the ways in which we can actually use technology to sort of combat some of the racism and sexism that's in society. So, for example, algorithmic bias can get replicated when we're looking at a ton of data that we've gotten from the past 30 years, for example, and then we're taking that data, running it through various machine learning algorithms and using that to make predictions. And one of the issues with that specifically is that we are using all this historic data that young people have not necessarily produced, but folks who are currently young, and as they're going to get older, they're going to be the ones on whom these predictions are going to get implemented. And so this is a huge issue for young people specifically, especially because they haven't been involved in creating this data, but they are going to sort of have the outcomes of this data, which is hugely dangerous also because the current population that we have is more diverse than it's ever been before. And a lot of this data has been collected and is often fueled through white men or through folks who have had access to resources and whose data has been collected and whose history has been written. And so for all of those reasons, I think it's super important that young people, have access to technology. So one, they have access to good internet, which is sort of just a basic and should be a basic universal global right. But on top of that, I think in tech, one of the really hopeful things is that there is so much access now through various smartphones, through even just internet and broadband. Because of all that access, I think young people are much more able to get on various technological platforms to be able to build products or to be able to build solutions for issues that they see. And so I, in particular, am very hopeful about it. But I think at the same time, I do feel like we need to empower young people with being able to think critically about how AI works, being able to think critically about how these algorithms are going to be used on them, and sort of being able to think critically about how they might be able to challenge decisions that these algorithms are making for their lives.
Yeah, which is so true. I think empowering young people to understand the technology that can essentially affect their lives going forward is so powerful and so needed. I want to go to my next question, which is going to delve a bit deeper into the work that you guys are all doing with the fund. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, Arthur, because I believe your experience in Brazil and the supporting of the Black population is just so necessary. But also, if you can also give kind of like a key takeaway for any young people who can either get involved with the work that you're doing or can kind of have some form of, they can take away some kind of actionable step. I'd love for you to share that as well.
Yes, thank you, Nicole. The whole idea behind Afro Saúde is that we are talking about health, and we are talking about to keep Black people living in society. Like Farai said, society is always putting us in a place where we are always dying, we are always suffering. It is about that. And my startup's about longevity and keep living, and how we use technology to do this. And we use through a platform, we use through connection, and we use through telemedicine, electronic prontuary, everything that we want to amplify the access to mental health, to dentistry and nutrition, and everything else. And the grant from We Are Family Foundation helped us to amplify the voice of the work that me and my team are doing in Brazil, especially because we're starting our expansion here in Brazil, and we are also looking for partners and investors to expand to places like the United Kingdom, United States, and Portuguese-speaking African countries, because we found out that there is the same problem. Black people are always suffering from access to health, proper health, and to technology to use this. So what Afro Saúde does, we unite what Farai and Milena said. It's not only about the pain, it's about believing, and it's about using technology to do. So technology is a way. It doesn't have to be a barrier. It doesn't have to be natural and everything else. It has to be a tool for us to living. So I believe in health, each country has its problems, and that's what we did with Afro Saúde. We understood the scenario in Brazil, and we attacked directly the problem.
Amazing. And I can't wait to see how the fund will support that much needed work. Farai, I'd love to hear as well what you're most excited about this opportunity with the fund will do for the work that you've already started.
So what we're really, really excited about is that the program which was funded is called She is Empowered. And She is Empowered is a program which is focused on upskilling and empowering 20 young African women between the ages of 15 to 29. Now, the reason it's this focused on adolescent girls and young women is particularly important is because while Africa has made many strides in terms of gender equality, we still have quite a long way to go. We still have many girls who don't go to school because of beliefs that their families have of the role of women in society. We still have tribal councils who don't have enough gendered representation. We still have different parts of society where the industries are still very male dominated. So She is Empowered was designed to create modules and content created by African women for African women to say, let's look at self-development. Let's look at your career trajectory. Let's look at what African feminism means. Let's look at critical skills so that we can empower you as a young woman, and let's ensure you've got a mentor. So that is what the fund has funded, and we're so excited because Africa Matters is an organization run by 2 Black women, and in our 6 years of running, we've never been funded. And we had so many times where we almost gave up. And often, the critique we get is that our impact's amazing. We've reached over 20,000 people through physical workshops and online workshops, but people can't believe how 2 young Black women can achieve so much. And yet we're so capable, and we feel so honored to finally be recognized. I remember receiving the news, sitting at a coffee shop and crying. And I think we need more funds like this fund, like We the Family Foundation, to recognize that it is possible to create amazing work. It is possible to believe in young people, of color. We've got the passion, we can see what is wrong in our society, and we can fix it. So a way for people listening to be involved with Africa Matters and even the fund as a whole was, first of all, support funds like the We the Family Foundation, like the Youth to the Front Fund, because they do believe in the potential of young people. Secondly, if you are a mentor and are keen to work with young African women, please put your hand up and contact me, and I'd love to assign you to our incredible She Leaders. And thirdly, let's keep Africa Matters making impact. If you want to contribute in terms of your time, in terms of your talent, in terms of treasure, bring whatever contributions you have, and we'll be so appreciative. Thank you so much, Nicole.
Thank you. And thank you for putting that so wonderfully and sharing so much of the exciting work that you plan to do. Rihanna, let's go over to you. Let's definitely hear a bit more about the work that you've been doing and plan to do as well with the fund.
For sure. So the work that the fund funded was I've been working on 2 major ebooks and 2 major areas of research with a team of incredible folks who come from both a technology background and a sociology background. These are the 2 ebooks that we've been working on. One is a guide to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the other is the technological approach, which is around debiasing your machine learning product. And what we've been doing through this is really, we've realized in tech, one of the main issues is often when companies inadvertently end up developing racist products or sexist products, they'll say, oh, it's just that there's not enough folks of color, there's not enough diversity in the pipeline. That's really the struggle. But what our research has discovered is that it's not that there isn't enough talent, it's that companies really struggle to retain and advance that talent. And so that's sort of the real actual big issue. And so our guide kind of addresses both of those things, which is one, like, how do you actually create a culture that is friendly and encouraging and supportive of folks of color and folks who may not necessarily comply with the quote unquote culture of the location that they're in, of the company that they're in. And then the second piece of that is, how do you actually have conversations on your team, and how do you think critically about the data that you have? And our guide on debiasing product goes into a ton of detail around various different methods we can use, various different things we can do at different stages of data collection and data processing. So our guide goes into how you can look at data pre-processing, how you can look at your learning algorithm while you're processing the data, as well as what you can do after you've processed your data. And these 2 guides, I'm hoping that folks will kind of look at both guides as complements to really be able to figure out how they can do both, because just one approach is not enough. You can't just fix data all by itself in a vacuum, and you can't just fix your company culture without actually looking at what you're building. And these are sort of the two main things that we're putting out there. And I think one of the things, if you're in the audience, one of the things you can do is invite me to speak at some of these companies, because oftentimes we really just need a external voice to come in and talk about all of the ways in which you can think critically about your culture. And the second thing is really just to download both guides. We just launched them today. They're constantly being iterated, but we've launched the 2 guides today, and they're super user friendly. You don't have to be an engineer to look at it, or you don't have to be a sociologist or an HR person to look at it. It's very applicable to anybody who's looking at it, because I think one of the main things that everybody needs to recognize is that each person is responsible for changing culture. Like, you have a ton of power as one individual, and it's not really necessarily up to the company or up to sort of whatever workplace you're at to make that change, because racism and sexism and an unfriendly work environment might be happening right on your team without you realizing it. And so it's super important that we recognize our role in this and really take more responsibility and feel more empowered to speak up, because we can't expect the folks who are getting sort of worked out of their organization to be the ones to bring change. Like, we can't leave it to the Black people to change the company. Like, that's just not reality. And that happens all the time.
Yeah. So well said. Hear to everything that you've said. And if any organization is watching and is looking for a brilliant speaker or consultant, please hire Rihanna. Niall, how are you doing?
I'm well. I'm still trying to wake up, but
I've got a good question for you. I really wanted to, before we go into the final question, just kind of hear about your future intentions for the fund or the We Are Family Foundation, or just to share a little bit more about how people can support in this call or who are watching, and just kind of keep following the work that you do.
Well, the fund right now, it feels very robust. When we sent out our first set of applications, we couldn't believe the response. I mean, it was amazing. And I think maybe from the people we have on this panel, if you will, you can see that it's a fund. When I was in the Panthers, one of the byproducts of being in that organization is that they taught us how to, because our programs weren't really funded by normal banking institutions or even, credit. We had to think outside the box. And what they had built into their program, which was genius, and we didn't quite realize it at the time. We used to sell the Black Panther newspaper, and they would give every individual 1/5 of the sales of the paper. The paper at that time, it's well before the internet, was highly consumed. People wanted to buy this. So at the end of the day, each person wound up having a fair amount of money. So if we had side projects that we were interested in, to actually have money and to be taught financial literacy and to be able to be taught how to negotiate and work out terms with different vendors and things like that was imperative. So what we're doing with the fund is we're recognizing people, young people who already have those skills. And what we want to do is help them propel their programs, help give them obviously access to the funding, but amplify their voices. And this is something that I've seen work. I mean, because I was a part of an organization that it worked very effectively. I know that the media never talked about that. They only talked about, going to the courthouse with guns, like big deal. That happened one day or 2 days. Most of the time, what we're doing, we're feeding children and cleaning people's houses and finding ways to take that extra money that we made and build little community programs. And the convergence of these little community efforts, we wound up understanding would have a massive effect in the community, which is probably why we were targeted so effectively, because once the people realize that, oh man, these young kids, these little teenagers are really nice, they're really cool, they're doing these things to help the community actually function better. We actually functioned as a community. That seemed dangerous to powers that be, because, you know, at the time we have to realize that America, even businesses, you know, the big structured business, the big, you know, what wound up being the businesses of today, which would invade our little communities. And I don't mean to sound like I'm anti-capitalism, because that's not where I'm coming from. But what wound up happening is those little community businesses that we supported so effectively were really threatened because we were doing such a good job by propping them up. We had a very valid system. And as I said, the powers that be looked at that as a real threat, because imagine if you expand that all the way across America. Now we're talking, you know, to X, you know, 100 to, you know, 100. I mean, it could just go on exponentially. And at a certain point in time, as we know, if you have continuous exponential growth, you have what we call explosive growth. And they were terrified of explosive growth of those kind of community programs.
Yeah. I think also,
that's so true. Yeah, go on.
I just wanted to add something super quickly to what Nile is saying, which is the work that Nile did and the Black Panther Party did during the civil rights era, and a lot of the legislation that came out of that is still continuing to help us to this date. Like some of the work that I do around algorithmic bias and some of the ways in which we can actually prevent companies or prevent algorithms from actually very explicitly discriminating, even if it's accidental, because nobody's like going in and like trying to discriminate. That still continues to help us to this day. And that is one of the reasons why companies really need to be very careful about what they're building and actually think about whether or not there is bias within that algorithm, because you could very easily be doing something illegal if your algorithm accidentally is biased against protected classes that this specific legislation is protecting.
Yeah, which is so true. Thank you for adding that on. And we see, as the fund is doing, how supporting individuals, grassroots who are doing the work can really support the work that they're doing and see the changes that we want to see. And I think that's really powerful. So we're just going to move into questions. And if you're watching live, please send across any questions that you have for the panel via social media and we can ask them. But until we get those questions in, I thought I would just ask you guys this kind of blue sky thinking question. You know, I mean, what are your hopes for the future? If you were president or prime minister for the day, what's the first thing that you would change or tackle? I know that it's kind of like a big question to try and do it all, but what's the first thing that you would change? Feel free to jump in.
Can I go?
Yeah, go.
I would invest in Black people and people of color, because we need investment. We need someone to believe in our work. We have amazing ideas. We can study, we are smart, but one needs to believe in us like we are the foundation, like Nile believe in us. And live in a way, find the financial way, because our ideas, our projects, our business need to keep surviving, existing, making change. So the first thing that I would do is to invest in ourselves, before in ourselves.
Yes, investment is so important and so needed. Farai, do you have one thing that you would change if you were president or prime minister for a day?
Yes, indeed. I would establish more funds for youth-owned businesses or youth-owned NGOs. In South Africa in particular, we have a huge problem with youth unemployment, and we know from research that having more SMMEs contributes to creating more jobs. So I would establish youth funds, youth incubators across African countries so that we can support youth-owned businesses by young Africans, and then in turn be creating job opportunities across the continent.
Yes, Amazing. Love that. I would definitely have you as my president. Rihanna, what was the first thing that you would change if you were president for the day?
I feel like rather than being president for the day, I'd love to have like a magic wand for the day. I feel like your ability to make change as president and prime minister can be limited in some ways, especially because when we're thinking about racism and sexism and some of these internal biases that we all have, I would wish for everybody to sort of find that inner courage to actually think about sort of ways in which that they can actually change their internal world in many ways, because I think oftentimes some of these issues come from internal things, from the way that we've been raised. I was watching a documentary recently, and apparently if babies haven't been exposed to a variety of faces, babies can also be racist at like 4 months of age. And so it's really important to realize that a lot, like some of the issues in society are caused by many of the internal issues that we have. And so I would want to encourage everybody to find that inner strength to really figure out ways to reflect, figure out ways to be anti-racist, and figure out ways to actually genuinely be inclusive of the people around them, because it is a terrible feeling to go into a new environment and to feel like you don't belong and to feel like you are not welcome somewhere. Because and it's something that I think all of us have faced in some ways, or whenever you're in a majority environment. It's like, I remember when I first started working as someone who had grown up first gen, low income, going into a corporate setting for the first time, there was just something really jarring about not feeling like you belong and not feeling like you can talk to people and meet them where they're at, even if I was a pretty like friendly and social person. And so I'd really encourage everyone to be as reflective as possible and really have them be as inclusive as possible.
Nice. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And it's so interesting to hear about that fact about babies not seeing diverse people. So that's really interesting. Nile, if you were in charge, what's the first thing that you would change?
I would try and implement a system that rewarded people for doing good. I've noticed throughout my life that it seems very easy for people to be incited to do bad things, even people who are not bad. And I don't know what that thing is that makes a person kick a person when they're down. But if I could develop a system where people actually got rewarded for doing good stuff, I think that the benefits would be unbelievable, because you would think about waking up in the morning and saying, what can I do good today? Even if it's self-centered, after a while, it becomes practice. It becomes it becomes the way you think. And I think that would be wonderful, because I see too much hatred. I see too much reward given to people who like to do bad things. Look, I grew up in a pretty hardcore neighborhood, and I noticed that all of the people who were the most popular were the people who were the meanest, the bullies. They were the ones who seemed to get all the accolades from everybody around them, maybe out of fear for some type of reprisals. But if people were rewarded to do good things and nice things, I think that would be an amazing thing for the prime minister to enact.
Yeah. Thank you, Niall. And that's such a great way to close off this panel, to remember that we are all and can be in positions to do good. And there's so many different ways in which we can do good through our lives, to the people that we connect with. And that's so powerful through the work that we do at Black Girl Fest, but also through the work that we do supporting each other. I think there's so much opportunity there to do good and to create the world that we want to see. So I want to say a big thank you for everyone. We are just bang on time. I don't want to delay the programming for CogX, but I wanted to thank my incredible panelists for virtually joining us in this conversation. I'm so excited for the work that the fund is enabling you all to do. Nile, thank you for making the time for your busy schedule to join this conversation and to really share your story. A big thank you to the CogX team for having me and having our panelists share their story and also connect with you all. I'm hoping that you can connect with all of us online through the hashtag, but I'm going to pass it back over to the team to take over and say goodbye. Thank you, everyone.